Hey, it's Shaq for the Big Podcast, and the NBA playoffs are in full gear. Every play, every moment, every game means that much more. As I've been saying for months, John, BetOnline.ag is the place to get in all this action. Sign up today for a free account and use promo code PODCAST1 for your 50% sign-in bonus. Can anyone slow down Golden State? Is Milwaukee the real deal? Yes, I think they are. How far could Houston and Boston go? Toronto? Don't miss out. BetOnline.ag, the exclusive partners of Podcast One Sportsnet and your online sportsbook experts.
The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Makers of Minnesota. If you have been listening to the podcast, you know that we highlight entrepreneurs and people in the state of Minnesota that have made cool things. Could be things like technology applications, could be actual products, could be services. Could be that they are serial entrepreneurs and make things over and over and over again, which is what is the case with my guest today. I am here with Heather Manley. She is the CEO of 3 separate companies, On Demand Group, which I believe does IT recruiting, and that's her family's business. She and I met through her association as the CEO of Heather's Dirty Goodness Seasonings and Spices. And then she wasn't busy enough. She decided, hey, I think I'm going to start a spirits company, and she launched Crooked Water Spirits. Heather, how you doing?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yes.
As I was saying, you are a serial entrepreneur. One company, one job wasn't enough. You decided, hey, I can make seasonings and spices that are pretty good. And hey, liquor, I
Who
got
doesn't like
that.
booze?
Yeah. So
That's the one company that everyone looks at me and smiles at. And the spices. But
Yeah.
everyone loves booze.
Well, I love your spices too, so I want to
you.
give them their due because I just actually bought another round at
good.
Kowalski's over the
Thank you.
weekend. So you're a young woman. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
39.
Okay.
I had to think about
God,
that.
you're not even 40 yet. That is so awesome. So I met you, and someone said, hey, you should meet this woman. She's in the food world. She's just created these spices, and she's trying to get them into grocery stores. So tell me when you launched Heather's Dirty Goodness.
I launched it in 2011, and it was with meeting with somebody at Kowalski's. She was generous enough to sit down with me and tell me everything I needed to do to be considered a possible supplier there. I brought my seasonings, the original, in a glass jar. Looked like a jar of weed. I mean, it looked totally suspicious. I didn't even have branding or packaging around it. And I'm like, you want to try it? And she's like, no. But she's like, but I'll smell it. She smelled it. And she's like, okay, here's what you need to do. And so I took immaculate notes, did everything she said I needed to do in about a year, came back to her, and she's like, oh, well, you don't sell it to me. You sell it to the managers and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, my God, well, what if they don't like me? And had a meeting with the head guy, and he looked at our branding and our story, and he's like, this is exactly what we've been trying to do with our own brand. We love it. Let's take it. And I was really excited about that. It was one product, but I wanted to make sure that what they bought from me had buy-in. So I said, well, I don't want to sell it to you till you guys try it. Tell me you love it. Give me your feedback. And then from there, I'll sell you the product.
So let's back up. You have Heather's Dirty Goodness. It's the original seasoning that you sell them.
Yes.
The original seasoning, I'm sure it's a proprietary blend, but it's kind of sage. It's
lots of
warm.
rosemary. I think like Thanksgiving in your mouth.
And chicken. Yeah. Like
chicken,
I use it on
turkey,
Thanksgiving, chicken,
kind of an
roasted
Italian
Brussels sprouts.
stallion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's Heather's Dirty Goodness original. And you get them to try it. Do you invite them over to your house or?
No, well, no, it wasn't that intimate. They said they have their own kind of cooking area. So they said, okay, well, we'll cook it up. We're going to do some sampling tomorrow. And they gave me some great feedback. He said, the rosemary, a couple people thought it sticked in there, because I had a longer cut.
Yeah.
So I changed my recipe and made it more sifted. But he said, other than that, everybody loved it. And that's when I know that they would help me grow the brand because I had their buy-in. From there, They bought it and we launched. I really wanted to also get into Cub Foods.
Yep.
And so I have a great connection
Now,
over.
you just to back up,
Yep.
you sell it, you launch, you go into Kowalski's, they
Mhm.
buy it.
Yep.
Does that mean now that you're in the super value chain, or
No.
that you're just literally working one-on-one with a Kowalski store manager?
One-on-one with a store
Okay.
manager. Yep. And self-distributing. I think it's hard to bring in a distributor when you can save those costs and deliver it on your own.
Okay, so you're not even, no one's selling it for you. You're
Nope, just me.
after work going and selling and making
Yep.
these sales calls yourself.
Yep, doing a lot of weekend sampling.
I was
going to
say, and sampling, I imagine, was
Yep.
really what sold the product to
Yep.
the customer.
Yep, and I have a woman now that goes out and does that and shares the story and the brand. And to get into Cub Foods, which is where I also wanted to go with my end goal is Target. So I'm still working on that. But you have to have more than one brand or one SKU.
Yep.
And so with that, I really brought out all my spices and did an R&D session for a few weekends and came up with 4 more SKUs that were out of the box and aligned with what we wanted the brand to be, which was low salt, really unique ingredients, high quality, and then presented that to Super Value, and they've been on that right away.
Okay, so tell me all of the line. You've got Vintage.
Vintage, which is like a geeked up hunter's rub with juniper berries in it. I have Sophistication, which is a sweet and smoky, not super sweet. I think more like honey and brown sugar, with just a teensy bit of heat. You have original, which is like the Italian Stallion. Censored, which is my favorite. It is like
Super spicy.
10 peppers in it, and it's like a roller coaster of heat that comes down quickly so you can still taste your food. And then Burlesque, which is a cocoa and a little bit of cayenne as well, rub that's amazing on white meat.
We use it a lot in chili, too, incidentally.
Yeah, chili, and it's great on popcorn.
Okay, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So I have the whole line of your seasonings, and I really enjoy them. And so now you have to make more. You've got more SKUs. You've got this all set up. Talk about your packaging.
Ooh, my packaging in the very beginning was so ghetto fabulous. Oh, I actually have a guy that is a big supporter of mine and awesome, and he bought it because the packaging looks so dirty, like made in the back room of some
It was very
craft
burlesque
area
feeling.
Yeah, and it was it's just original, and it was just very basic. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I have my boyfriend is a graphic designer, art director, and so I really leveraged him when it came out to the full 5 SKU rollout.
Yep.
You know, we did the dirty just to get the original out, but now let's create a brand and let's really elevate it and stand out on the shelving. And we also learned a lot of lessons. I was producing them in 8-ounce jars. Well, that was just way too much. My rubs are pretty condensed. They're not super fluffy.
Yep.
So they last a really long time. And they're really heavy, which means they're really expensive. And so I was realizing I was kind of pricing out the Cub Foods buyer.
Yep.
And even some of the Kowalski buyers. So I changed all my labeling to glass, 4-ounce jars with a nice sifter cap on it. But that also, delayed me coming to market about 6 months because we had to redesign everything and put pricing together. So I think one big learning lesson from that is really where do you want your end game to be, and tee yourself up to be able to get the market that you want to go after, not just what you're doing right now.
So let's talk about that. I mean, to even start a spice company, did you go to India and source spices, or did you just go to the spice center and pick the ones you wanted? And where do you source spices to make spices?
Well, so I have a cupboard full of spices, and basically what I did is I just did a lot of R&D online of really out of the box. You have a couple big spice shops online, and just ordered a couple $100 worth of spices to experiment with, try with, and
did you mix them in your kitchen at home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Open a bottle of wine. That was the tradition. Open a bottle of wine
Come
and
on
just
over.
start mixing.
Heather's making spice.
Yep. Just measure it, and if it's great, awesome. If it's bad, dump it, move on, try again, and that's what I did. Really taking a lot of basic staple recipes and then just elevating them. You don't need to recreate the wheel, but why don't we take that original recipe or kind of standard and elevate it?
Yep.
Throw it out of the box.
So you're 5 SKUs deep. How did you get into Cub Foods? Because so many people, that's like the holy grail. And
It's hard. Yeah.
did you cold call and just say like, "Hi, I'm Heather, and I have these spices"?
Yep. So I have, with On Demand Group business, I have a great connection in the supplier diversity there, who is just a huge champion of minority and women-owned businesses. And she gave me a contact of the right person to call over at Cub Foods. So I cold called him, and he was amazing and just said, well, send me your samples, sent him to him. And he's like, well, we'll just do a pilot and we'll do it here, here, and here. And I go, okay, fine. Let me get my stuff together. Here's my pricing. And that's where it started, where you need to rebrand. Pricing's too high. And then by the time I rebranded, came back to him, he's like, well, we're going to do all the stores. And I was like, well, wait, you just said a point of concept or proof of concept. And he was cute. He was like, well, I can change my mind, can't I? And I'm like, yeah, hell yes.
Yes,
okay.
give me some time.
Yeah, no problem. Let's do it. I was so excited that they wanted to roll us out into all the Cub Food stores. And I know that we had it easier than a lot of people have trying to get in. And I think a lot of things come to just timing.
Yep.
And our products looked very different. They have I think a great vision with them, with being low salt.
Yep.
Being very creative, not standard rubs. And I think that also helped us get on the shelves.
So you literally have to like go home now and make enough product for 28 Cub Foods?
Oh, no. Cub Foods has a process in place for expectations of their suppliers. So I had to get vetted with UNFI, which is a national distributor. So I met with them, and they, with the understanding I'd already have a committed buyer, and so they vetted me into. I think at that time it was Trudeau, and then they got bought out by UNFI.
How did you learn how to do that? Did they give you like the roadmap of here, go call these people, you have to be approved, do this thing?
Well, they said you have to go through Trudeau, so you can call this person. And I remember calling somebody and not getting any feedback or response. So my brother happened to know somebody there higher up.
Yep.
And so he said, hey, can you talk to my sister? And he wasn't the right person, but I could at least get an ear of like, hey, Cub Foods wants me. Who can I work with? And that's what actually got the ball rolling is I'm pretty impatient. So if I'm not getting what I want, I'll see, can I use other avenues to get to the right people? I mean, I'm coming out with a pre-bottled cocktail, and I needed Campari's TTB formula number. And I was getting blocked at one area, and she's like, just wait, it's coming. So then I just went down this whole other avenue, going to another distributor, to the Campari rep, to the Campari rep's boss, and talking to Italy. And long story short, I got the TTB formula number, I think way quicker because I was able to, go with multiple avenues. I'm impatient.
Okay, so you now are in Cub Foods.
Yes.
How much money at this point, when you get into Cub Foods, had you invested in your spice company, do you think?
Oh, not a lot. I don't like to carry inventory.
Like less than 10,000 or more?
Oh, for sure. Less than 10,000.
Less than 5?
Less than 5.
Wow.
Yep.
I would have thought it would have been more than that.
No. Well, what's great is even with Kowalski's, I gave them a net delivery time of say it was net 30 days from order.
Mm-hmm.
So I could come in. I think even the jar I brought in was the sample label that I taped on to the jar. And once I actually had an order, then I made the investment in inventory. I like that just-in-time methodology.
Yep.
And that worked.
And you can do that now with printing and lots of resources that make it easier to just buy what you need.
Yeah. So it's not a lot of out of pocket. And then Rhett and I worked on, we worked on the labels ourselves. A lot of sweat equity went into it, but not a lot of outbound cost.
So you're at this point a CEO of your family's company, On Demand Group. Now you've got Heather's Dirty Goodness, and you've launched. Mm-hmm. You must have been proud. How long was it before you decided that you needed to do the next thing, and the next thing being Crooked Water Spirits?
2013. So, I have 3 passions in my life. It's family, and in this order, food and booze. And On Demand Group is family, Dirty Goodness is food, and Crooked Water is booze.
Right.
So I think it was just a natural progression. And when I saw what Mike was doing with his dill aquavit from Camelode, I'm saying that correctly.
Okay.
He makes a beautiful, beautiful product. And I think that really woke me up to what small craft spirits can do compared to so much crap out of there of artificial flavoring. I mean, his product is pure dill submerged, 50 pounds per batch. It's gorgeous. So I thought, I paid Rhett and Scotch for a lot of his marketing or design services.
Yeah.
And so I was looking up on the wall, and I'm thinking about what Mike did. Why can't I do that? Well, what's a differentiating product in the market right now? And I looked up, and I was like, well, how come nobody's cask finishing bourbon? And when I Googled it, the only company I could find was Angel's Envy. So that's the product that I went with. And then I just interviewed tons of distilleries who was private label friendly, who would walk my hand through it, who had bandwidth.
To be clear, what you've done is you've taken someone's base spirit and then you've changed it, amended it, flavored it to be your spirit. Is that how a lot of these spirit companies are working, or are they starting from scratch? Can you help me understand that process?
Yep. So with the bourbon, I am using Yahara Bay Distillery's award-winning, beautiful 2-year bourbon. And then I'm putting it in port casks and sherry casks. So I'm finishing it. I'm not flavoring it, but I'm letting it sit in another barrel that adds sugars to it, natural sugars that cut the heat of the bourbon and gives you a really just beautiful tone to it.
How did you learn how to do that?
I did monthly sampling, which is really hard to do. Not really. To find that, the distiller was like, you're going to ruin the bourbon. I'm like, just trust me. I'm willing to take a chance.
Yeah.
But I know it's not going to be ruined. And it wasn't. Like after 2 months, he was like, this is amazing. We should pull it. I'm like, no. Like, give it some time. This is a baby that will grow better with age. And now we pull it anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. The one I have, the barrel that I have that I'm releasing in December will have been in there for 18 months.
Okay.
And that's going to be stunning. And we do really small batches of the bourbon. This will be only batch 3 of King's Point. But with the vodka and the gins, those are from scratch, and those are all my recipes.
So you have now vodka.
Yes.
You have gin. You have bourbon, some aged bourbons.
Yes.
I find this fascinating that I want to pick at it a little bit. Like, how do you think you can do these things? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you just sit there and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah. You don't doubt yourself. You don't think about it and then think, oh, but it won't be successful. Like, you are one of these people that just goes. You have a real entrepreneurial spirit like that.
Well, I think everything I do is very low risk. So the investments I've made with bourbon, I know I could resell that bourbon if I decided to close shop. I also think that I'm really good with recipes, right? I'm a good kitchen sink cook, meaning I can make really good things out of nothing in my kitchen. And I think that talent leans very well towards creating spirits. It's the same thing. It's all about creating a flavor profile that is unique and beautiful.
Do you feel like your palate is different than my palate? Like, do you think you have an exceptional...
Oh, the super taster thing?
Well,
I've heard people talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not that obvious, but that, like, do you feel like when you know something is good, that's going to translate to me knowing it's good?
I was at the what was that golf event at Hazelton, whatever. People are going to kill me for that.
I know, and it's on the tip of my tongue.
So people were there, and they handed out plastic cups, and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't even drink this beer because it just reeks of plastic.
Yeah.
And everybody I was
Ryder
with.
Cup.
The Ryder Cup, yes. Everyone I was with was like, no, it doesn't smell funny. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and that kind of made me, like, for the first time ever, be like, maybe I can smell things and taste things a little differently than the super average palate. But I also think I love that from the dive bars to the French Laundry, and I think I have a good understanding of what can push people's boundaries and what the general public would like, or that isn't offensive. There's some obvious things that are pretty offensive, but small group of people like, and there's regular products that the masses like, and so I'm trying to find a balance between innovation of really unique products, but not be off-putting
right
to the regular general public. That because it needs to be, I don't want to sell 20 cases. I want this to be something that everybody can love, from the gin snob down to my mom, who doesn't drink hard liquor at all.
And so
Or gin.
at this point, you have vodka, you have gin, you have the 2 bourbons, right?
Yes.
And then don't you have another vodka that's now a barrel-aged vodka too?
Yep. So I have 2 bourbons, 1 in port, 1 in sherry. I have 2 gins. One is a London Dry Navy Strength, really beautiful. And the other one is a New American gin that is citrus forward. And to compare, the London Dry has 6 pounds of juniper berries, and the New American has 1 pound.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of call it a gin converter, because if you hate gin, you're going to love this. And it's
Right.
really summer in your mouth. It's really beautiful. And then the Low Grand vodka is a beautiful 100% winter wheat vodka that I age in charred French oak. And that came about of getting 20 samples of American oak and French oak from toast to char, tons of samples in between, and letting them sit in just a neutral spirit. I think I used Absolute vodka. Because the more neutral
At home, just like in a cup.
At home, mm-hmm. And let it sit there for I want to say maybe 2 months, and then I did a tasting, and by far the French oak had the most beautiful mouth to it, the most transferring of the beauty of the wood with the caramel and the vanilla and the campfire, and so that's how I decided to go with charred French oak.
Gosh, you're so funny. So you're just literally like mixing these up at home.
At home, yeah. Oh, I have so many things at home. I have a stocked bar.
You do. I've seen it, so I can testify.
It's concerning.
So, in starting your spirit company, how much money did you put on the line for that?
That's a different story. I think probably maybe 100 to 150.
Okay, so that's a lot more than you had risked on the spice side. So, I mean, were you scared? That had to be a considerable amount for you. I mean, for anybody.
Yeah.
Was it gradual, or did you go, okay, this is the amount of money I'm going to put towards this, and
gradual.
then when it's gone?
Gradual. The biggest investments are aging my bourbon. So
Okay.
I probably have 70,000
In inventory.
60,000 in inventory.
Yeah.
That I'm sitting on for anywhere from 2 years to a few months.
And then it's like, is the brand going to go between now and then, right?
Yeah. And I'm with success, what we're hoping and distribution is that we can self-fund our own distillery. But now it's go time, because now we're on Sun Country Airlines.
Talk about that.
The bourbon will be on there January 1st, which I'm really glad that we had 1 barrel I was hanging on to, and I had to refile my label because the TTB, out of all the companies that register their bourbons, came after me saying that the new regulations, you have to file your bourbon as a specialty bourbon if it's finished in something else. So I kind of stalled on that, and then finally got things going, and thankfully so, because I wouldn't have had any bourbon to put on the planes.
Right.
And
So how did you get into Sun Country? Was that a cold call too?
Well, that was I have a friend who works within the umbrella of Sun Country.
Sure. Yep.
And asked him who the right person was, and he gave me his info, and then I followed up and just asked for a meeting. And I had a great meeting and told him our story, who we are, how I think it would fit, and he was telling me about their initiatives, and they have a huge mission to grow brands here locally with them. Sarir and the CEO of Sun Country just spoke about that to the airport commissions, about what they're doing, with Surly, with Crooked Water Spirits, with Myers, and they're really, really supportive. And I think that so they gave me a first opportunity to have our vodka be in first class. We did a soft launch starting in September, I believe. And then our regular launch with our gins and vodka started today. So we're on all the planes, not just first class.
Congratulations.
All the cabin, yeah.
I'm impressed as heck. So you're in the planes now. Do you have to help market it? How do you make sure that, when I get on the plane, that I order your... Because isn't some of this becoming too, we have all these now, we have the regular spirits, and now we have the local spirits, and now it's becoming sort of a brand identity game being familiar with the game. So when you walk into the liquor store, you can find it. Shelf space in liquor stores is getting tighter, I would imagine, the more local we introduce.
Mm-hmm.
How do you play in that space?
Well, I think one reason we're getting shelf space is that we're not creating anything that's normal. So we're not a regular clear vodka.
Right.
We're an aged vodka.
Yep.
We are not a regular gin. We're a Navy strength gin.
Yep.
We're a New American gin. No one's doing that. So I think that is helping us get a spot at the table.
And that's all you need. I'm just knowing you get that spot, and then you make that a 2 spots, and then you like, hey, move over. I got another person
I got something
squeezing
else
in here. It's sort of how I see you. So I know you've been a big proponent of National Association of Women Business Owners. You were the president of the Minnesota chapter. How important has it been to be a certified women business owner in these endeavors?
I think with On Demand Group, vital, because we're really we're business to big business.
Yep.
And that's just another way to get in the door. It doesn't give you any business, but you can always leverage the supplier diversity resource at these corporations to champion you in to meet the right person. And that's what they do. They vet and evangelize companies that they believe in and companies that they think can support their organizations on an enterprise level. And so for On Demand Group, it's been incredibly important. For Heather's Dirty Goodness, I got certified there because SuperValu wanted to be able to count the spend. So it wasn't certified. But supplier diversity is incredibly important to them. And so with their request, I went out and got certified so they could count the spend. With Crooked Water Spirits, I think that's going to be a game changer because we are the first certified WeBank distillery in America. So I'm going after a captive audience that doesn't have like 5 of me asking for business. And unlike IT, where you can't swing a coat and hit an IT company, there's no one in my space.
Right.
So I'm getting, I was just at the Minority Council Supplier Diversity Fair in Chicago on Monday last week, and had great conversations with several hotels and other airlines because there's just really there's no one
in your space
competing against me from that supplier diversity aspect. So I'm really lucky. So I'm trying to leverage the heck out of it right now to differentiate myself and get it, hotels and all that kind of stuff.
There's a good story there.
Yeah.
And when you go from like a big bottle to the little bottles, was that hard to figure that out, or?
No, that was super easy.
Okay.
My current distillery had some, so we just quickly rebranded and was able to get that going.
And you say quickly rebranded, is that because your boyfriend can kind of help you change the packaging?
Yeah, we just had to shrink it all down to fit it. So resize the labels, basically. Yep. And then I just bought 50,000 minis. I have 50,000 bottles. So that was kind of more of like a clenching moment. Because it's like, well,
a butt clench, as it were.
This better work because otherwise everyone is getting a mini from me in the state of Minnesota as a gift.
Yeah, for the rest of life. I'll be giving away little minis you'll be carrying them in your purse.
Yeah,
people will start to wonder.
Minis if this doesn't work out. So
I'm a couple things. I'm super proud of you because I'm your friend. So I'm just like, my God, look at her go. She just keeps going. What I know about you, so you've now got your 3 stools, your 3 pillars of your stool, right? You've got your family, your friends, and food. Did I get them all?
Family and friends, food and booze.
Food and booze. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that enough now to keep this entrepreneurial mind going, or can you just keep doing product extension lines? Like, do you ever feel like, wow, I'm maxed out on my time and I can't do much more?
Yep, I'm at that right now. I'm easily at 12 to 15-hour days. I know it's temporary until Crooked Water can take off, and then I can hire someone to kind of come in. And because right now I don't have an admin or a support person, so I'm kind of doing it all for Crooked Water. And I'm at that point. I want to do 3 things really well. I don't want to do 10 things half-ass.
Yep.
Sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
You
word.
can. It's a podcast. So these are your three things.
These are my
and
three
as they
things.
grow,
And even Heather's Dirty Goodness is kind of, it's self-going, but I've taken a little pause on that to really focus on elevating Crooked Water Spirits. Something's got to give a little bit. And I have so many ideas of things I want to do. I have a whole thing of like that aren't even with food or booze, just like product ideas, but I can't do it. Right?
Yep.
I just can't. I gotta make sure that On Demand Group is incredibly important to me, and that is, we're 90 people in that company. I need to be there. I need to be visible. I need to work my butt off there.
Because you're working with those 90 people, and it's your family business, and it becomes their families.
And that's my baby, and that is, they're all very important to me, but that's my baby.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of time into Crooked Water as well in the evenings and weekends, and you have to prioritize what's important.
So what is the most challenging thing about what you're doing right now?
Nothing ever moves fast enough. So it's a lot of waiting. And I want to already be, I want to already be there. And I can see it and I can taste it, but it never happens fast enough.
Do you write down goals?
Yeah. Well, I have for On Demand Group, I have a 5-year goal. I don't write down anything else. With Crooked Water, my goal was to get on Sun Country, which I can't, believe happened. It's so exciting.
And why that was the goal? That seems like an interesting goal to have had.
I love the brand. And to me, that's just, I don't know why.
Because Minnesota maybe, and just feels good.
And I just wanted it. I always wanted it on their planes.
Yep.
And now that's happened, now it's like, okay, now I need to, get enough distribution. I need people going out and asking at the bars and at the liquor stores.
For your spirits.
Because that's how you grow it. That's how Kieran grew Two Gingers, is that the people asked for the product, not selling it to the bar managers or, who might not like whiskey or might not, identify with the brand. It's really getting to the people, sharing the story, and getting them to ask for it. And so that's what I'm working on right now.
And if you're listening to this podcast, that is a way that you can help Heather and other local people. If you start to ask for local products, or you spread the word about this podcast, you share it with your friends. That is how business goes.
Yeah.
And it's how Heather will pick up the phone and cold call somebody. That's how business goes too. So if you're listening and you've got these ideas rumbling around in your head, start.
The worst thing they're going to say is no.
That's right.
Right? And nobody is going to promote you but you. That's you got to wrap your head around that. I am a big fan of fake it till you make it. I mean, one of my favorite stories, a woman here who owns a huge business, and she was like, you should be a part of this group. And I'm like, well, how much is it? How much do you need to be in sales before you're there? And she's like, oh, it's like 20 million. I'm like, oh, honey, I'm not even close to that. And she's like, I would have thought you were way over that. And I'm like, well, it's because I'm faking it till I make it.
Yeah.
And that one, that was years ago. And it's just projecting confidence and knowing what you're doing and being passionate about it and getting those goosebumps. Because if you're confident, you're passionate about it, and you're not scared of getting a no, I find it hard to fail.
I will say one thing that you do different too, and this is something I think that I've done well. Women are good about promoting other women. Mm-hmm. There's a lot less, I think men are like, oh, I'm in a competitive space. I'm not going to recommend my suppliers, or I'm not going to recommend people I work with because I don't want people to know who they are.
Yeah.
I don't want people to know who my clients are. They may go after them. One thing that you kind of have always, every time I'm around you, you're like, oh, you should call so-and-so. They do this. You should call so-and-so. They do that. You're very free with the referrals. You're free with the recommendations. And I think that makes people want to help you in turn, or that there's this karmic bank in the world, and you've put so much in the bank that when you need it, you get to draw out. So,
well, I've gotten a lot of great referrals my way too. And I think I learned that with On Demand Group. When I was starting with that company in 2006, I had coffee every morning, a mid-morning coffee, a lunch, an afternoon coffee, and a happy hour. I did that almost every day for 3 or 4 years. And still to this day, I have, 10 to 20 meetings a week. Now I get to mix in more fun things like giving back and NABO and and mentoring but I rarely found, I think maybe 2 appointments that are 3 that I went on that were a complete waste of time.
Right.
Like, networking is so fun. You never know where. I like it's almost like choose your own adventure. Once you meet somebody, it really is 6 degrees of separation, and you never know where it's going to go. And we're all here to help each other, right? I always try to pay it forward, connecting people. And that's how I met Salsa Lisa, is someone saying, you got to meet Lisa.
She's going to be a guest on a future podcast.
She's so fun. And she's like one of my very good friends now because of that connection.
Yep.
And then following up and reaching out and politely stalking her until she would meet with me.
And that's how we met?
Yeah. I dropped off Spice at your office.
And someone, didn't we meet though at we met at a restaurant. You were having lunch with a friend of mine and they introduced me to you. And then you brought Spice.
Oh, that could have been it.
Yeah, I think I met you at Rye Deli. You were eating with someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think.
You're at Jim.
Yeah. I was with Jim Surdick and he was like, you should know her.
Yeah.
And so
funny.
There it was.
Yep.
All right. Well, having you here has been super fun. I wish you tons of success with all of your companies, Crooked Water Spirits, Heather's Dirty Goodness, and also the On Demand Group. I just will thank you for the women in the Twin Cities because you have championed a lot of women. You do a lot of great work for women in business. And I think you give a lot of people confidence that you can try something or that you can be something different than you are. You can envision it. You can do it if you just set your mind to it and you start going.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. Stay tuned for 60-second AP News headlines.
At Farmers Insurance, we know every windshield collision has a unique sound. Beetle. Bird poop. Drone. Seen it, covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. An F-16 pilot having hydraulic problems with his aircraft managed to parachute to safety as the plane smashed into a warehouse east of Los Angeles. Fire Captain Fernando Herrera.
That pilot landed in the March Air Force Base area, in the base itself.
Amazingly, there were no serious injuries after the plane hit the building. Alabama executed a man last night for his role in killing 4 people after an argument over a pickup truck. Tennessee executed a man who killed his wife. Reporters couldn't see the execution, but AP correspondent Travis Lawler says
we could hear sounds, including singing, that Mr. Johnson's attorney says was him singing a hymn.
Answering a reporter's question, President Trump said he hopes the U.S. is not on a path to war with Iran. Mr. Trump has dismissed suggestions that any of his advisors are trying to push him into a conflict. I'm Rita Foley.